Well, it's time now to look at the day's business news, and for that I'm joined by Yuka Roya in the studio.
Hello,
Hi there,
Julia.
Yuka. Now let's start with another major data breach, this time hitting Volkswagen.
Well, Volkswagen says that more than 3 million customers in North America had their data stolen due to a security flaw at one of its vendors. The exposed data includes personal details like emails, phone numbers, and in some cases, driving license and social security numbers. Most of the people impacted are current or potential buyers of its luxury brand Audi. The information was gathered for sales and marketing between 2014 and 2019 and was stored in an unprotected electronic file. The automaker says it believes the breach occurred sometime between the summer of 2019 and May of this year. McDonald's has also been hit by a data breach. Now, the hamburger chain says it detected unauthorized activity on its internal network and discovered that a small number of files containing personal data were accessed in South Korea and Taiwan. The company says that its security system was able to close off access quickly after identifying the issue and that no payment information was compromised. As we heard earlier, leaders of the Group of 7 nations are expected to agree to provide 1 billion doses of COVID vaccines to the countries in need by 2023. But the other idea for speeding up vaccine production is more controversial, one about suspending intellectual property rights on the jabs. Yana Lee takes a closer look at pharmaceutical patents and what's at stake.
The World Trade Organization has rules on intellectual property designed to incentivize companies and creators to innovate and produce. Patents are a type of IP rights. They provide companies with limited-term monopoly over their inventions to reward them for investing in the research that allowed them to develop their product. Vaccines fall into this category. When a pharmaceutical company makes a scientific breakthrough, they expect to have market control for around 20 years. But as COVID-19 spread across the world, many governments and activists argued that these rules should be put on hold due to the severity of the global pandemic. A proposal spearheaded by India and South Africa was submitted to the WTO along these lines. Their supporters say this will bridge the vaccine gap between rich and poor countries.
We need billions and billions of vaccines, and these handful of pharmaceutical companies who own the vaccines and the patents cannot produce enough for everyone.
Unsurprisingly, pharmaceutical companies disagree, but they're not the only ones. Critics argue that there's no point in sharing secret recipes to countries that lack ingredients and the know-how to make vaccines. They prefer to promote donations and exports. G7 leaders have yet to agree on the issue. The White House was first against and is now for a patent suspension. Germany is against, but France's Emmanuel Macron is leaning towards a limited easing of rules. In any case, a WTO waiver would need a consensus among its 164 members.
But the G7 leaders have also reportedly agreed to continue supporting their economies with fiscal stimulus and shared the view that the recent rise in inflation is temporary. Fears of inflation have also calmed down in financial markets, with investor attention now turning to next week's meeting of the US Federal Reserve. Trading on Wall Street was rather muted this Friday, but all major indices managed to eke out gains towards the end, with the S&P closing the week at another record high. Turning to Lebanon, where the economic crisis continues to go from bad to worse. Pharmacies across the country started a 2-day strike this Friday to protest at severe shortages of medicines. This as drivers are queuing up for hours at petrol stations to try and fill up their cars while fuel is still available, worried that the pumps will soon dry up or prices will skyrocket. Scuffles broke out at some stations while some residents started blocking streets with rubbish bins. Lebanon's local currency has lost around 85% of its value since the autumn of 2019. Let's hear from one local resident.
ما بقى يتحمل الوضع. صيدليات سكرت، ما في ادويه، ما في شيء، ما في حليب، هن مخبيينه ليطلعوا بس يشيلوا الدعم. الترمبات سكرت، ما بقى في شيء. شو بدك بعمل بالبيت اعمل انا ابني بيقول لي بدي حليب وبدي حفاضات، بقول له بابا ما عندي جيب لك. ما معي مصاري جيب لك، يا خيي معي مصاري. وين في حدا فاتح؟
French authorities have broken up a major trafficking operation of European glass eels. Officials say that the smuggling ring shipped around 46 tons of glass eels to Asia, a lucrative operation worth more than 18 million euros. The investigation started in 2017 after customs officers seized around 1,000 kilos of the fish destined for China and Thailand. Baby eels are said to be more valuable than gold, as millions of tiny fish are then grown to full size, each weighing about half a kilo, and it's sold as an expensive delicacy. Over the past 3 decades, the European eel population has plunged 75%. The European police agency Europol says glass eel trafficking is one of the most devastating crimes against wildlife worldwide and has been carrying out multinational operations to stamp out smugglers.
Well, I hope they do stamp out those smugglers. Thank you very much, Yuka Roya, there with the latest in business. And we're going to take a short break here on France 24. There's more news up next.